Hi, my family. I'm Trey, and welcome to my beautiful abode here. Well, for a little while longer. And today, my talk is called "Just Say No to Official Reality in California Indigo Harvesting," and say yes to ONICAL awareness, reality, creation. So, tragically, I have to agree with most of what Indigo Angel is telepathically ascertained in her video because think about the conquistadores and the death blood cults of the dark side, the Dracos that began this so-called civilization. Ha! I call it as I see it. What you call civilized, I call the devil's lies and I don't believe it. I'm just in love with life, not in love with war and strife. I don't need anyone to push the war machine on me anymore, son. But there ain't nothing wrong with another unity song. There ain't nothing wrong with taking hits of the highest grade greenhouse organic flour from a unity bong. Ain't nothing wrong when you know how to discern how to make yourself more strong. Watch out, y'all. You might fall just doing what I did. Straight up in the middle of the club with a rub it up. Na 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 na. Don't boom boom. Get jiggy with another suburban family morning. When I was still staring at the wall. Is depression coming without warning? Till he feels he can't do anything at all. Many miles away, something moved toward the shore of the dark Scottish loch. Many miles away. Many miles away. Many miles away. Yeah, just think about it. This has been multi-generational that this place has been the way it is. The curses on it have been going a long time. So the blood curse on this particular Santa Cruz curse has been going, since 1791 or so, or before then, the late 1700s. So, the question I posed on part one is, is the reason why I have all the shadow banning, and not to say that I'm in the city council, in the council of YouTube, but I mean to say that if YouTube is a open source free platform that everyone is welcome to upload and post videos on, saying, for example, if ideally speaking, if it was 100% transparent machinery and public machinery, say everyone who posts videos on YouTube is on the YouTube Council, does that make me the Drew Glover of YouTube? Because in the sense that I get, kicked off, I got one strike, but almost zero views on a lot of videos, or 3 or 4 views. I got heavily shadow banned because I was telling the truth so much and asking YouTube, asking everyone, asking the Illuminati, asking everyone to, just as Drew Glover asked the Santa Cruz City Council, do not do backroom deals, to become clear, to become transparent. And basically he was, they recalled him and kicked him out of town, kicked him out of his job, called him abusive. Now, he might have been a self-serving politician, smooth-talking politician who was verbally abusive a little bit, they said. Perhaps he was, but I saw in him almost a Martin Luther King, not as pure in that sense, but I could see a rising black star politician. But the problem is, like Martin Luther King, he wanted them, Jr., he wanted them to be transparent, and they would not. He wanted clarity, and they would not. They wanted to continue their corporate corruption, such as I mentioned about Front Street. So, um, is this why, is this why the YouTube doesn't want to support my views? Why Satan fully hates me but cannot hate me openly? Because again, many people think the devil's greatest trick is that most people think they don't exist, or the Satanists and Illuminati and Luciferians in the black magic scientism death cult convince their followers and these students that there's no devil. They know shit. They worship the devil openly, but they convince everyone else to be solipsistic and that there is no such thing. The dark spirits, and the ones they worship eat your traumatic emotions when you're stuck going from one crisis to the next. This is what my social worker told me one time. The reason why she didn't get back to me about housing or something or other is because she admitted, she's a Scorpio too. She admitted, I go from one crisis to the next, and that is exactly what the aliens want. They feed off that. You become trauma bonded to the very dark entities that you're trying to to clear your energy from if you're on the path. The human mind is a frequency radio set. I've said this many times. Okay, channeling, basically what we're going to learn in the next few years is that being psychic is normal. Channeling, and this is why, I think the reason why Jane Roberts died when she was 59, because she was channeling Seth, and it was a dark entity that allowed her to become a famous writer, but he told her it's okay to smoke commercial cigarettes and drink beer. She died of rheumatoid arthritis when she was 59, and I think it's because she obeyed this spirit she was channeling that told her that it was okay when she had this illness. So, but what most common what happens most commonly to the Indigos when they're dealing with the dark side spirits, right? When you're an empath or you already have the frequency of oneness, what'll happen? Okay, they'll beam frequencies. Frequencies will be beamed at star seeds and indigos to constantly disrupt them, distract them, separate them from the community as much as possible. What Lisa Renee calls sexual misery programming. For sure, they're going to attempt to use that to get you to become a homosexual, a pedophile, or whatever, to get you to want somebody half your age, twice your age, or whatever. To go without sex, to never forgive your mom or your uncle who raped you, and just hate men forever from that, etc. So never have forgiveness. And have these teachers at this college to encourage that. And so they want to constantly separate them from community, disassociate your mind through many MK Ultra programs, through infiltration and trained operatives put into most coastal California cliques, literally, through the so-called cost of living, the very rich and the homeless, as Indigo Angel said. And then we have wage slaves who just work all the time, 3 or 4 jobs for their apartment. Most folks, their energy is harvested economically, obviously, okay, through the Saturn demiurgic recycling system and through isolation and trauma. Those who were from the Illuminati families or orphans used as sex objects and then put on psych meds or meth and isolated. And this is just the normal reality of people all around here. And I want to tell every one of them, you are not your wounds. As a friend of mine said, I'm not my history. Interestingly enough, a Scorpio astrologer told me, I'm not what happened to me. If you learn from it, what has happened in dramas is not who you are. There was a girl when I used to go, like I say, before the lockdown, about a couple years before the lockdowns, I used to play 2 or 3 nights a week at reggae Jamaican music nights at restaurants, bars, and nightclubs in Santa Cruz. About 90% of the DJs loved it when I jammed my melodica with them, and this this one girl who was either Illuminati or that, that same kind of personality control from the dark side. This blonde-headed girl, she'd wear black. When women were getting horny watching me dance or play my instrument, about to rub on me or dance with me, she would whisper in their ear, "He's a homeless guy," or "He has the certain letter illness," or whatever. He would, you know. So, why I was often the odd man out in Santa Cruz all these years? Well, I didn't understand when I was younger in my 20s and 30s how infiltrated this community has. How many of these. Mark Passio said he said he was in the Church of Satan. He said there's probably over 200,000 of them in the USA, 200,000 black magicians around us, and I'm surrounded by them here. So I even heard a UCSC student on the bus the other day explaining to someone casually in kind of a good-natured tone of voice how he had to be in a place with good energy in the forest to do a good black magic ritual. And he was sick, he had a tone of voice like it was like a gentle, good idea. So a lot of people around in Santa Cruz County, there's a lot of, I just now heard a few days ago, I just learned what it's called. There's a lot of California communal narcissism or narcissistic communities. And most of them hate me a lot because I expose their evil. The dark side makes perpetual dramas and encourage wage slavery to control and destroy the mission of Indigos. Narcissistic abuse leads to massive trust issues most of the time, and even solipsism. In LA, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Berkeley, Seattle, Portland, it's infested with Dracos pretending to be radical activists, hippies, sexually wild, and of course, as I've said many times, your ego trips, people who come out to the West Coast to live out their dream, like myself, can get possessed by narcissistic predator entities, And the socialists want to make the government your mommy to try to create a Neverland in a place like this. So we'll stay overgrown, hippie babies. The acid test, and in downtown Santa Cruz, there's a crazy house. It's entirely, I'm pretty sure, most of it is, so-called casualties of the acid test. Because after the acid test, that documentary said they had local hospitals stocked up with antipsychotics, so that they would just, these people are gone. So now they live there. We have the GLBTIFFU. A huge indigo harvesting operation, which is multi-generational, as I just mentioned, all the way since Gloria Steinem's era. The answer is, and then we get spoiled by the perfect weather in Santa Cruz, the perfect organic food and cannabis, or the weather's perfect if it's not manipulated. The answer is to get clear, recognizing the massive attrition, realize that we have to move. You're in a ganja paradise, and the addiction trap can be very strong if you're addicted to cannabis. Realize cannabis, as I've said, can't do the shadow work for you. See the intense ostracization that somebody like me is thrown into. Am I a fish out of water? Water is life. Standing Rock remember that? Well, they said Cleopatra would bathe in milk while the serfs would die of disease because they didn't have water in ancient Egypt. California is a modern Babylon, culturally, financially. It's a cold water paradise with the most intensive AI machinery, mind control weapons, and weather weapons to get rid of and exterminate the useless eaters or wild, hippies and gypsies. Often we fatten them up just to put them in the frog and turn up the heat. Put them in the pot and turn up the heat. You must have clear discernment and seeing skills to get out of it. And so, California, the zodiac is a sun sign Virgo, the moon in Scorpio, Sagittarius rising. The hermit card for Virgo is the hermit. I mean, the tarot card for Virgo is the hermit. Okay, So the Khazarian mafia came in here and they probably decided the birthday of California and created. And again, as I've said in previous transmissions, Christopher Hitchens details it in his book, The Great Mistake, how the